POA community. Welcome back, everybody. Robert Linkle with trainingtheolderadult.com. Hope you're all doing great. And we are going to get into a good discussion today, a deep dive, if you will, on the bench press. For this, we are going to feature this article here by Brian Sutton, MAMSNCSCS, NASM CPT, corrective exercise specialist, CNC, I don't know what that is, NPES. I don't know what that one is either. But anyhow, good article, really well done article. We are going to highlight this one, bench press targeting muscles, the grips, and the other movement patterns. We'll definitely look into some anatomical pictures as well and discuss personal experience, personal preference, coaching clients, and et cetera, et cetera. We'll kind of let it go from there. So this article does a great job of kind of breaking down learning objectives and the basics of the bench press. Kind of go through with the overall description of what we're getting into: a movement action, flexion at the shoulder and the elbow to extension of the shoulder to the elbow, with something specific called the sticking point, okay, which is the most difficult part of the lift. And there's a lot to debate / discuss about the sticking point. There are basically two methodologies of getting out of the bottom of the bench press. Number one is, and this is not advised, bouncing the bar off of your chest, okay, basically allowing the rib cage to act as a springboard a little bit to allow the bar to contact and drive. And so basically you're training a velocity focused lift, where the other side, and this is advised, is with at least some eccentric control, lowering the bar slowly, touching the bar to your chest and holding for a half a second to 2 seconds, somewhere in there, and then concentrically driving the bar back up. Now, a couple of the articles that I'm going to reference here talk about incline, decline, wide grip, narrow grip. There's all kinds of depth that you can get into here. Do you want to use a regular bar? Do you want to use a curved bar? Do you want to use a Swiss bar with neutral grips or 45-degree angle grips? Majority of this stuff is personal preference and training purpose. Are you training for hypertrophy, big muscle growth? Are you training for performance and power output? Are you just training for general strength? And that all of those variables basically kind of suggest different protocols and how you would implement them. One collective measure across the board that we saw was that the incline bench press will definitely provide a little bit greater upper pectoral stretch as opposed to any of the others. That more load can be lifted in the declined angle because the angle at the shoulder, instead of being at 90 degrees on a flat bench, when you go to an incline, it opens the angle, which makes it quite a bit harder to stabilize for the chest. But when you go to a decline, it closes that angle, making in a way, number one, a shorter range of motion, but also a better angle to push on. The smaller that angle, the stronger that joint is to be able to work the leverage of the bar. So depending on how much load you want to move, the decline is a good option. More narrow grips, if you will, are going to produce a little bit more tricep recruitment, and a wider grip is going to get a little more pec and center pec recruitment. So again, a lot of selections and options. Do you want to use dumbbells versus barbells? Dumbbells, you'll get a deeper range, a greater stretch, if you will, but maybe not as much load able to be moved. I don't know what the dumbbell world record is in bench press versus the barbell world record. So I guess that's something that we could look up here while we get into this. The world record, raw means you're not wearing a powerlifting suit. There's no assistant tools or any gear or equipment / is by Julius Maddox. He benched 335 kilos, which is 739 pounds. Okay, that is raw. So that's the world record for raw bench pressing, meaning you're just wearing a t-shirt, basically, maybe wrist wraps, okay? Now, quite a few people have benched over 1,000 pounds, but wearing assisted lifting gear. And then the best I could find for the dumbbell world record, there was an article in 2020 that shows Eddie Hall. He was the world's strongest man in 2017. Eddie Hall sets a new world record by bench pressing 105 kilos, that's 232, right around in there, 232 pounds in each hand. And then if we scroll down a little bit, there's another gentleman named Larry Wheels who benches 275-pound dumbbells in each hand. So that's a lot of weight. So 275, that's, let's see, 550, if I'm doing my math right. That's right. So 550 compared to 740, basically, is what the other one was. Obviously, more load can be manipulated utilizing one giant implement versus two independent implements, but the range of motion is greater. Okay, it was my point of looking that up and looking at this. If you can move more mass load with the barbell, but you don't get to move it as deep, dumbbells, you could probably get an extra inch or two, maybe even deeper, depending on the individual, how flexible you are. Greater the stretch, as Dr. Mike Israetel, Dr. Brad Schoenfeld, a lot of our other researchers that are on here, and celebrity YouTubers out there that make just great content will demonstrate and discuss the big eccentric stretch with a slight pause at the bottom produces the maximal stretching and tearing and good tearing of fibers to get you really strong and or big. So I've personally been practicing that the last 12 to 16 weeks, somewhere in there. And I have felt a massive difference. Not only have my strength levels gone up, but I feel a very different activation in my chest. It's difficult though. Ego has to come away from this and you go, all right, I can't lift this weight that I was just kind of repping out 1 by 1 second tempos. When you start doing a 2 or 3 second negative with a eccentric stretch at the bottom with a 1 to 2 second pause, number one, it drains your energy system really quickly, but number two, it's really difficult and you've got to reduce the weight to build back. However, you get back to these weights you were using a couple of months later while still doing that slow stretching tempo. Damn if it doesn't feel good. Like that's a very successful experience going through that, but a little humbling too in the beginning. So anyhow, the sticking point is definitely a challenge, or the challenge of the bench press is when you have lowered the weight and you are about to change direction. We're going from the preparation phase of a lift coming down. We're going to change direction and accelerate back up. And when you get to the top, there's a short little follow through where the weight kind of ends and transitions and comes back down. So you go prepare, accelerate, follow through, prepare, accelerate, follow through. That's this undulation of movement patterns with every single rep we do. The sticking point is when you are changing directions from prepare to accelerate. It's right on that curve, and that's usually where people get pinned or stuck to the bar. Or you take that pause and you drive everything you have together and boom, you drive through that weight and deliver a successful rep, okay? So he goes into a little bit more of the research. I'm not gonna hit every single bullet point on here, but just to kind of give you an idea, he's talking about the movement patterns and the phases. We just kind of discussed all that, the grip angles and such and what you're looking at. I love this, the focus of your anatomical breakdown. And I'm gonna show some visuals here that we'll get into these a little bit more, what your primary, secondary, tertiary musculatures are, what the agonists versus the antagonists are, origins, insertions, your actions, etc. as we go across this. But love seeing all this in here. And the technical starting points. These are really good discussions to have. I think it's not really arguable that you need to have 4 minimum contact points to bench press well. 1 and 2 are both feet, left, right. We have yet to see somebody successfully attempt a bench press rep, and you'll see this all the time. When you get into that sticking point and you're struggling, you'll see a leg lift up off the ground and it just sticks out into the air. No one has ever done that and gotten better at bench press. Like that, as soon as you reduce your ground reaction force contact on the bench, if your feet are on the bench or if your feet are on the floor, as soon as you move a leg, number one, you're wasting energy trying to lift another part of your body while trying to move this heavy load. It takes away focus, it takes away, but number two, you've just lost stability and equilibrium and everything else that goes with your feet being in contact with whatever they're on, blocks, floor, bench, okay? And as soon as you lift up that leg, everything counters and shifts. If I lift up my right foot, the weight that I'm benching drastically shifts to the left as a counter, because I just lost my opposite and equal reactive pressure that I'm pushing on the ground to help me stabilize this implement. I lift up my leg, everything shifts on my body. So the attempt, it likes that idea, the attempt to manipulate that weight successfully is going down if you lift your feet up off the ground. So let's keep for sure both feet on the ground or on the bench or on lifting blocks, whatever you're using. Your butt needs to stay on the bench. Your shoulders need to stay on the bench. Now, out of those two, which one is debatable that could come off? Your butt can come off the bench. Should it? I mean, if we're in competition, no. Your cheeks need to stay in contact, like your actual glute muscles need to stay in contact with the bench. But if you're benching, like what is the advantage to someone lifting their butt up? You're flat, we just showed you this a second ago, you're flat on this bench and you're bench pressing. And then you decide, I'm gonna lift up my butt, I'm lifting up my butt, lifting up my butt. What did that just do to your angle? It created a decline. So we do that knowing that I can be more successful if that angle is shorter and I will be in a stronger position to finish this lift. So in some cases, I've seen people train with lower back injuries myself where I put my feet up on the bench, but others will put their feet on the bench as a training component. They'll do 3 or 4 reps with their butt flat on the bench, and then they'll high bridge and do 4 or 5 more reps in a decline on purpose. Like they're kind of supersetting, if you will, 5 flat rep benches to 5 decline because they know it's a better angle, but they're more fatigued, right? So they kind of use it to an advantage. In competition, you create the biggest arch that you can while still keeping your butt on the floor or on the bench. But that arch is giving you more of a decline. It's closing the angle as best you can. And you'll see some individuals that are former gymnasts or ballet dancers or something, they're just so hypermobile. They can arch their back so much that basically the bar path is only like 3 or 4 inches. And their hands are so wide, okay, that basically they just move the bar out and they go boop, boop, and that's their bench. Like you're basically kind of manipulating your anatomy so much to your advantage. Did we really perform a bench press or did you just do like a high angle lumbar arch with the tricep lockout? That's where things get a little tricky, okay? So both feet must stay, butt and shoulders must stay. Now, as the hips come up, right, we talk about the back's gonna get hurt if you keep lifting your butt up. Not really, unless you're overly, excessively arching your back and such, then you could have some disc issues there. But you just ideally wanna have enough of a curve in your lumbar that's rather natural that you could like slide your hand underneath your lumbar spine. If there's so much light underneath there that you could slide a Coca-Cola sitting upright, then it's probably too much of an arch, right? You want to have 1 inch or 2 and just natural curvature and just prop your chest up. Another one is the 4th position is the shoulders need to and have to stay on the bench. But you really want to practice creating this platform, if you will, of tucking your shoulder blades together and lifting your sternum up a little bit, and that will create a nice high angle to maximize pec stretch and tricep involvement, but also put your shoulders in a really healthy and proper position to lift in, where if you flare your lats or round out, kind of curves and impinges everything in the shoulder. So external rotation at the shoulder, chest up tall, tuck those shoulder blades together like this one is a really good setup. Now, point number 5 is really the only one, in my opinion, that's kind of negotiable is your head. Some people will leave their head down. There's their 5th point of contact. Others will lift their head up. What is the advantage to this, okay? When you lift your head up, what's happening is you're tightening the erector muscles that go from the iliac crest to the top of your pelvis, okay, on the backside, top of the iliac crest, that stem up your spine, and they overlap with another layer of erector muscles that go up through your shoulder blades, and then another set of erector muscles that go all the way up to the back of your neck. When you lay flat on a bench and your head is down, those erector muscles are rather slack. But if you look down, you're tensing those muscles. Apparently I talk a lot with my thumbs. You're tensing those muscles, you're shortening them all the way around, and by putting my head down, I'm tightening all those muscles in that kinetic chain. So everything's kind of relaxed, and then when I put my head down, the chain kinks in and it locks up a little bit more. And for some, myself included, feel like that is a stronger position to bench press. So I will cue my clients to look at their belly button while they're bench pressing. So they are in an attempt to try to pre-stretch those erector muscles along the backside of the body, trap, levator scapulae, all the muscles that help you kind of lift up and back. It's part of an agonist-antagonist approach. I'm going to ask all the antagonist muscles to work on the front side. I want my antagonist muscles on the back of that to be able to be taut and engaged to allow the agonist muscles to do their job on the front, okay? You want a buttress on each side of the wall to be equally as strong, so one is just as independently strong as the other. You get a stalemate, your wall stays very strong and supported. We're trying to build a really good frame here that's strong at pushing, but also at pulling. These are opposite stabilizers, and thus, will help you become a better bencher. So kind of keeping that in mind, abdominal withdrawal, abs pulled in, so your core is nice and tight, pushing with your feet down on the ground, not enough to lift your butt up, but enough to engage your lower body. And there are techniques to, tuck in your toes and all this other stuff. Just have good ground contact. And then the last part is your grip, okay? Regular grip of a barbell. You are going to wrap your thumb all the way around the bar. There is a grip, in Olympic lifting called a hook grip, where you wrap your thumb underneath. And this is for pulling strength, because you have a high weakness in your grip. If you've wrapped your thumb, there's a break opening here, which is the weak link. If you're really trying to pull as much weight as you can off the ground, that is the point of weakness that will start to separate. But if I hook my thumb underneath my fingers and I wrap them in there tight, that break point is much more difficult to come apart. This is a much stronger way to grip onto something. If you're like, life or death, I need to hang on forever. Here's the thing. If you go and try that, it's super uncomfortable. It's extremely uncomfortable. And it takes a long time to build up a tolerance to where that doesn't hurt your thumb. But good Olympic lifters will do that. This is not an Olympic lifting lift. It is not a pull. It is a push. So you will see people hook grip while they're benching, totally unnecessary, okay? Just a regular wrap your thumb grip will be good. You can have your thumb out on the bar if you want to, not advised, but you can. What we don't want to do is a false grip where your thumb does not wrap all the way around the bar, okay? And what that does is leave you exposed for the bar to slip out. And if you are in the up or down position of the bench, that's going to pin your arms to your throat and things are going to go very badly. There are some videos of this happening to people. Instant catastrophic damage, broken ribs, broken clavicle, crushed windpipes. There was a running back at USC, I want to say in like the mid 2000s. I think I was in college, or at least finished somewhere in there in the middle of the 2000s, where he was benching like that, getting ready for the combine 225, and then slipped the bar, and it almost killed him. His teammates basically were doing CPR, I want to say, to like keep him alive. His windpipe got completely crushed, and had he not had a 19-inch neck, that he would have died. I mean, it would have killed him. So this is a technical issue that a lot of people will do because it feels more comfortable on the hands and wrist. I can't stress enough how important it is to wrap your thumbs around that bar. You do not want to have any type of issue with your grip with any kind of load in hand, okay? Maybe on dumbbells, because you can slip them and they'll just fall on the ground, but again, I think it's just good practice, okay? Now, again, he goes into breathing patterns, grip positions, wider elbows, more narrow elbows, etc. Kind of talked about that a little bit. Breathing, for the most part, average individual, deep breath on the descent, eccentrically stretching, okay? When the pause, maybe pausing your breath. And then as you're driving the bar, the dumbbells back up, once you're beyond your sticking point, meaning in your mind, you're like, I got it. I'm going to finish this lift. You can start to let your air out. So it'll sound something like this. As opposed to now your breathing mechanics and your pressing mechanics are no longer in alignment, okay? And that would be a thumbs down at one of those moments if that were to occur. Of course, it doesn't do the thumbs down when I want it. Okay, so where that could be a negative is if you have any kind of valsalvic pressure abnormalities or injuries. If you have pelvic floor issues, if you have a hernia, if you have acid reflux, any of that kind of health concerns, by taking that pressured breath And then that internal pressure that's kind of holding and helping you, that internal pressure can push like if you had a diastasis recti, diastasis recti, yeah, that's right. The little bread basket lift in the abdomen and a little separation in this wall here. A lot of older men especially start to get a hernia there. That pressure can continue to push that hernia up higher, higher, higher. Low hernias, inguinal hernias lower in the abdomen. And then any kind of pelvic floor issues, lower back issues, sciatic symptoms, all of that can be aggravated and triggered by this valsalvic pressure. So there are some techniques where you would opposite breathe. You would reverse valsalvic, where you would let your air out on the way down and then breathe in as you're coming up as you go. It's very different and it's difficult, but it does not produce a lot of abdominal pressure. And if that is a health concern for you, the most important part is that you are continuing to breathe. You're not holding your breath through these lifts and or taking shallow breaths because you don't want to take in all this air because the pressure hurts you, okay? As opposed to taking these short little breaths so you don't get this big, valsalvic kegged pressure around your abdominal wall. So if healthy, deep breath in on the way down, blow it out on the way up. If not, reverse that, okay? Again, that's not a very common practice, but it is something you can do if you have issues. Elbow position, hand position on the bar. Again, I just want you to focus on as being as even as you can. The knurling on the bar, that's the little groovy part when you grab it and you're like, ooh, this is rough. Okay, that's knurling. And then they have little rings that they will put in there. Those are placement, grip, and alignment indicators. Pinkies can go around that. My ring finger can go around that. My index or my middle finger, right? Anything. Thumb can line up with those if you're going really wide, and then wrap your fingers around it. So there's a knurling and there's a little ring. You can put your thumb on the ring, wrap your hand, then put your thumb around, and okay, each hand is 3 inches or my thumb length outside of that ring. So it's just a kind of indicator or starting point for you to find your depth, and it's pretty consistent on every bar, okay? So those are the options you'll have to place hands where you want. And again, it's for comfort, but also anatomically, the wider you place your hands, the shorter the path bar. The closer you put your hands, the longer the path bar. Now, if you have really short arms, that's going to be less of a path bar, but it's still going to be a longer range than if you were to put your arms really wide. So everybody's different and everyone's built differently. We have one of our clients, Bob, who's former Division I football player and was a center and benched his whole life with his elbows in really, really tight to be good at blocking and making contact with his hands. And so he benched 350 pounds with his elbows against his ribs and his hands about shoulder width apart. Could he have benched a lot more had he moved his arms? Yes, but he benched that way on purpose to be good at his position. Okay, so that's the discussion point. On the other side of things, his arms are, super, super long. So was this an advantage to him? Absolutely not. But was it pertinent to his sport? Absolutely. So again, when I discuss you need to make these decisions based on what you're training for. And if it's aesthetics, I just want to be strong and I want to look good, then you want to find something in the middle. You're not super wide, two hand width, two fist widths outside the little ring. But you also don't want to be one fist width inside the ring either. There should be, I would say for most people, their ring or their middle fingers go around those rings, and that should be, for the most part, a pretty comfortable grip, okay? All right, continuing down, scapular retraction, we talked about setting up the platform to be able to do that, how to drive through that sticking point. And there are much deeper, conversations to have on this, where elbow alignment and angle of attack occur. What kind of velocity should you carry into that? That gets deeper. We're not going that deep of a drive, and we're not going into competitive lifts either. This is just, a general overview of a deep dive on the bench press, just trying to give you as much, significant information as we can to address with your clients and or practice with yourself, to do so in a very good, safe way, okay? As I mentioned earlier, there are quite a few articles out there that talk about all kinds of different hand positions, what's being recruited more, what's being recruited less, what angle of attack with biomechanics do we want to hit, the pec at its highest, at its lowest, which one's going to give me the best hypertrophy-based effect, the biggest growth. What velocities do I want to lift it on? Should I do this for athletic performance versus aesthetics and the way my muscles look? All the way down to 1 rep performance versus a 6 rep performance versus a 12 rep performance across the board. All kinds of stuff to discuss. I just wanted to show you those articles, let you know they are out there. And that was just a small sampling of the, I don't know, there were 1,200 articles that I saw referenced in our search engine that included the words bench press. So you've got lots of stuff to look at, okay? All right, here's Frederick Delveri. Again, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but his book, and I have the new one here, is the Strength Training Anatomy, 4th edition. I think this picture that I found on the interweb is from a couple of editions ago, but you get the general idea here. Agonist, primary mover, pectoralis major, okay? Origin across the center of the sternum, it's gonna insert on the coracoid process, the medial inside aspect on the shoulder, okay? The secondary mover is gonna be your tricep. You have 3 heads of the tricep, long, crosses your shoulder, and medial and short. They do not cross the shoulder, they are below the shoulder. So their jobs are to do elbow extension through the primary focus of this lift. And then your tertiary mover is your anterior delt. Okay, anterior delt is going to help with the last, 30 to 15 degrees of the shoulder upon extension. It's going to help with that big stretch at the bottom. So you're going to really target your C muscles, the ones that you can see here, pec and anterior delt. And that's where you'll see a lot of people that bench press have these big, beautiful pecs and really well-developed anterior deltoids. But if they don't train their lateral and posterior head of the deltoid, shoulder looks kind of funny. It's like, what happened to the other 2/3 of your shoulder? Like they just didn't come in? What happened? That means they just bench press a lot and they're not doing a whole lot of high rowing or flying or overhead pressing, etc. So that's something to consider. Every time you bench, you're actually doing quite a bit of anterior delt work. So in later sections of the workout, when you get to your auxiliary work and whatnot, our front shoulder raises really a high commodity, or are they a high priority on our list? We rarely, if ever, do front shoulder raises. We're almost always at a 45 or at a 90 or in a hinge, targeting the lateral and the posterior head, because the anterior head gets so much engagement and focus on pretty much every other anterior body lift that you do. Anterior delt's pretty vital to this. So pec is the primary, tricep secondary, and then deltoid tertiary, okay? Some will argument 2 and 3 inverted. I just went based on muscle recruitment and size. You have more tricep and length and muscle and engagement than you do anterior delt, unless you're Mike Israetel with your big cannonball shoulders, or Dwight Howard, okay? You're probably gonna have more deltoid then, all right? You can see the angle of stretch. This is on a flat bench, and the little pictures at the top, okay? Look right here. Part of the pectoralis, mainly used, right, is like center pectoral. So what I love about this book is it's gonna give you such a good visual of the musculature in actions that we are all used to seeing, recognizing, feeling, okay? If I looked at just an anatomical chart, like the picture on the right up there, where it's the dude and he's doing the little pose with his arm up, most anatomical charts, it's just, this is the anatomical position. They stand with their palms up and their hands down at their side. And so from there, if the muscle were to activate, what would happen? You would get flexion at the shoulder, right? And at the chest, and that would be your pec action from that anatomical position. Well, in this case, we are getting a different angle, but we are definitely getting flexion and extension of the shoulder. We're getting a different angle, and it's just a different way of seeing how that muscle activates, rather than anatomically from this position trying to go, okay, I see how if the insertion at the coracoid were to pull in shorter, it would pull my arm across. How is that going to equate to the bench press? Well, here I can see it in action, exactly how these fibers are stretching. Okay, the picture at the top in the middle shows you, as he's descending the bar, the stretching of those fibers right down the center of the pec, and how you're gonna create that fairly equal, not too high pec, not too low pec, but right in the middle, that big pectoralis stretch. Now on the opposites of this, okay, we talked about agonist, antagonist. There's your agonist. Now our antagonist, all the opposites. Opposite the pectoralis are your lats. Lats are very flared. You can see his lats down here at the bottom. Okay, not highlighted, okay, they're dimmed, but you can see the lats down here at the bottom. Here's the little latissimus dorsi, okay, see that, and follow the arrow coming down. So that's one of your primary antagonists. Your lats are really gonna help you stabilize your shoulder. Your rhomboids are going to be very vital in helping your scapula stay retracted and in position. So that's your antagonist to your primary pectoralis agonist. Secondary is your tricep. So what's opposite of that? It's the bicep. And you can see your bicep brachii up here on the top right. Okay, bringing down to the pipe there, bicep. Now, bicep has two heads, it's going to stem, but meat of that musculature, because it's on the inside of the hinge joint, is where you're going to get 2 heads of the bicep versus 3 heads of the tricep, okay? Very similar to what you see at the knee, where you have 4 quadriceps and only 3 hamstrings. Now, you hear that and you're like, well, that's not fair. Well, number one, anatomically, you're pulling on the inside of the joint, so it has a mechanical advantage. However, you have another muscle called your brachialis and your bicep brachii and your brachioradialis. So you really have 4, well, if you break down 5 heads that are helping your elbow flex. At the knee, you have the gastrocnemius, okay, which is below the knee, but it does cross the knee. That's going to help you, now 4 to 4, help you flex the knee on the backside. 2 heads of the gastroc, so technically you have 5 that are helping with the blow. You also have the serratorius that comes across, and adductor magnus and longus and your gracilis and all these other isses, right? All these other musculatures that are going to help you stabilize your knee so you can work it. My point is all these muscles, even though it might seem, 4 to 3, they're outnumbered, there are mechanical advantages at work, but there are also additional little musculatures that help along the way that pretty much equate out to an equal push and pull on either side, okay? But this biceps job, to get back to the point here, the biceps job is to stabilize the elbow on the inside, to allow the triceps to do their work, okay, on the backside pushing through. So that's rather important for every agonist muscle's mirror antagonist to be strong, successfully strong enough to help it stabilize. A lot of people will say, how do I get better at bench press? Do a lot of pull-ups. How do I get better at doing bicep curls? Do some more tricep work. Like work the opposites to help equalize that joint or that effort. You're filling in an area of weakness. You're only going to get stronger at your strengths if you're filling in areas of your weakness, okay? All right, further down the line here, here's the incline bench press. You see those upper pectoral fibers are getting a lot more focus up high. Big stretch there. Look at the high angle. Got a good arch in his back, but his butt staying on the bench. You see the lat, okay, stabilizing underneath. Triceps getting a big stretch there at the bottom. A lot of really good work coming in here. He has a good wide grip too. Bar high placement up at the clavicle as he brings it down. High stress at the shoulder, definitely more stress at the shoulder at this higher angle. However, on the opposite, when you go into, let me go to this one, you go into a decline, a little less stress, on the shoulder, as that, again, that angle collapses less than 90 degrees. And you are gonna get some more lower pec, okay? You're gonna get that lower pec to start to lift up. Stabilizing the bar, maybe a little bit easier, path of the bar a little bit shorter on the decline, okay? But you are hanging upside down, you got a lot of blood flow coming back to your head. This can be a difficult one to perform. My personal favorite over all the bench press options are the dumbbell bench presses, as you can manipulate your hands into whatever position you want to allow for optimal comfort. And when you come in with a shoulder injury or a neck injury or a scapula injury or anything that the path of a bar is now stuck, basically. I can move it high or low, but I can't manipulate my hands. I can't really adjust anything outside. Wherever I'm going to manipulate this bar, it's going to have to be opposite and equal for me to keep it here. Where with dumbbells, I could have my right arm a little bit lower and my left arm a little higher. It's not ideal, right? But if that's the limitation that I'm dealing with, the freedom of the dumbbell is great. But as I started with, manipulating 2 implements is much more difficult than manipulating 1. That's why we have seen a 740-pound barbell versus a 550-pound dumbbell maximum. 150 to 200 pounds more of a maximal effort with 1 implement versus the 2. Now, are you going to get more stability? Are you going to get more joint security? Are you going to get more joint activation? Are you going to get more muscular engagement? I would say yes on the first 2. You're going to get more stability work at the shoulder, but it's still, either way, you're still having to stabilize and manipulate something that's in space and rather heavy and going through a range of motion. But with one dumbbell in either hand. You're going to have to recruit a bit more to stabilize both of those, as you're not going to have the counter or the opposite equal ability to kind of understand, if I bring my right arm down, my left arm's going to have to come up as I'm kind of steering this plane of the bar, where when the dumbbells, they can kind of go wherever they want independently. You're going to have to focus and be technically more sound to perform a dumbbell bench press successfully. And then again, the picture in the lower right showing the path of these dumbbells as they come down, keeping a pronated grip, a 60-degree angle grip, a 45-degree angle grip, a 0-degree angle grip, wherever is most comfortable. Both feet planted, rocking the high tops and the white socks, okay, all the way down. Now, the one last muscle that is one of my favorites, and it's that Jeopardy muscle. When somebody says, what really helps with the last 15 degrees of lockout at the elbow? It's a muscle called the inconius. Okay, see this inconius here? It's a very small muscle, and it's big. It's under big stretch here at the bottom, but as you're extending, it really helps in that last little 15 degrees of lockout. And it's also a muscle that can be responsible for a lot of pain in the elbow if it gets injured. However, it's rather durable, okay, and it's a really strong musculature. One of those muscles that when we were taking our our anatomy class tests in college, I would always drop in there as, you know, oh yeah, you got pec and secondary, tricep, tertiary, your anterior delt, and oh, the quadratary, don't forget the inconius. And my instructors were always like, dude, you're the only one that puts that in there. It's a vital member of the team here, enough to be highlighted in this picture. So don't forget about that one. It does help quite a bit with tennis elbow, golf elbow, medial lateral epicondylitis, just helping secure the outside of that elbow, get strong all the way around. All right, gang. So this gives you a pretty good in-depth picture and understanding of what we're targeting, what we're training here as we address the pectoralis. That's your primary focus of development here at the chest. A lot of tricep and anterior delt, and you can see all those fibers as they kind of wrap and drift around the shoulder and then insert over here with the bicep coming off the coracoid as well. Really beautiful when you see it kind of drawn up like this and how all the fibers, you know, striate and all mix and work together. It's a really, anatomy is a beautiful thing in my opinion. And I think having really good, deep understandings of these are very helpful, okay? Very helpful for trainers, coaches, but also consumers. So you know what we're targeting and why, and how all the mechanics of it work, and what are some of the best practices to make it most comfortable and most successful when you implement them in your strategies. Check out this article, Brian Sutton, job well done. NASM did a great job with this. And if you have any comments or questions, feel free to hit me up in the comment section below. Please subscribe, ring that bell, share information out there, let everybody know we have good stuff we put up. Help us grow our community. We'd really appreciate it. And until next time, please continue to fight your good fight against sarcopenia, and we will see you in the next one. Take care.